That night, just as my wife and son were settling into bed, the phone shattered the quiet. I answered, and on the other end was Zoe, my 6-year-old niece, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Uncle, they've locked me up. I'm scared." Then the line went dead. Panic surged through me. I called my parents, the ones who had been caring for Zoe after my younger brother vanished, but the phone rang endlessly with no answer. My chest tightened as if someone had gripped my heart. I raced through the stormy rain, every second feeling like an eternity. When I reached their house, it was cloaked in darkness, the door locked. I smashed a window to get inside, and what I saw froze my blood. My name is Elias Turner. I'm 37, living in a small town called Bowling Green, Kentucky. My life was ordinary, unremarkable but content. By day, I worked as a mechanic in a local garage. By night, I returned to my wife, Hannah, and our son, Rocky, a mischievous but well-behaved 8-year-old. We lived in a modest wooden house along the highway, with a backyard large enough for Rocky to play soccer and for Hannah to tend a small garden. Every morning, I woke early to brew coffee, kiss my family goodbye, and dive into a day of grease and clanging metal. Life was steady, not rich, but satisfying. Or so I believed, until that night, when everything unraveled. To understand what happened to Zoe, I have to go back. Because her plight wasn't random, it grew from tragedy already rooted in my family, cracks I had long ignored, hoping time would heal them. My younger brother, Jetson, was 5 years my junior. Born in what our parents called a lucky year. He was brilliant from the start. I still remember the long afternoons in Nashville where we grew up. While I ran wild outside, Jetson would sit for hours at his desk, sketching machine diagrams. Our father, Stone Turner, an aging construction worker, was immensely proud of him. "My boy's going to be an engineer. He'll change the family's fortune," he'd say, his voice thick with pride. Our mother, Robin, doted on Jetson even more than on me, insisting he took after her, slender, sensitive, thoughtful. I wasn't jealous. He was my brother, and I loved him dearly. We shared everything, an old bicycle, teenage secrets, laughter, and arguments. At 18, I left Nashville for Bowling Green, seeking work and eventually marrying Hannah, a high school friend. Jetson stayed behind, attended college, and graduated as a top mechanical engineer. He married Mia, a kind and gentle woman, and they had Zoe when he was 28. Holding Zoe for the first time felt like cradling a piece of my brother's soul. Her wide, round eyes, soft curls, and heart-melting smile made her unforgettable. Life seemed perfect. Jetson thrived at a large engineering firm, earning well and living in a spacious house. We'd meet a few times a year during holidays. I'd tease him. "Rich now, huh? Don't forget your poor older brother." He'd laugh, clap my shoulder, and promise, "I'll take care of the whole family. Wait till I get a bigger house, we'll all be together." But disaster struck as suddenly as a storm on a calm day. It was an autumn evening. Mia was driving Zoe home after shopping when a drunk driver collided with their car. Mia died instantly. Zoe survived with minor injuries, but Jetson, he shattered. I received the call from the hospital and drove recklessly from Bowling Green to Nashville. Jetson sat by Zoe's bedside, pale, his eyes swollen from crying. "Mia, she's gone," he whispered, voice breaking. I held him, trying to hold back my own tears, but my heart was already fractured. Mia had been his everything, first love, partner, the mother of his child. From that day, Jetson changed. At first, he struggled to remain strong, working and caring for Zoe with help from our parents. But the pain consumed him. He turned to alcohol, first a glass to numb the hurt, then entire bottles. He abandoned his job, stayed locked in his home, forgetting to eat. I called weekly, begging, "Jetson, live for Zoe. She needs you." He promised to try, but relapse was inevitable. One night, he called at midnight, slurring, "Elias, I can't do this anymore. Why did life take Mia?" I comforted him, but a crushing helplessness weighed on me. I wanted to save him, but work, family, and Bowling Green kept me tethered. And then, things worsened. Jetson began taking prescribed sedatives for depression, but he abused them, overdosing, letting the pills cloud his mind. Zoe, just 3 at the time, began showing the toll of her father's absence. She smiled less, often sitting alone with her mother's old toys. Our parents, Stone and Robin, who lived only a few blocks away from Jetson, stepped in. They made sure Zoe ate properly, bathed, and stayed safe. Practical and image-conscious, they were always concerned with appearances. Our father wanted the family to look perfect, while our mother spoke often of her sacrifices. They urged Jetson to get help, but he brushed them off. "I can handle it," he'd say defensively, always that same response. I remember the last time I saw him before everything fell apart. It was a sweltering summer afternoon when I drove to Nashville. Jetson was slouched on the sofa, dark circles under his eyes, empty liquor bottles scattered across the floor. Zoe ran to me, her small voice trembling. "Uncle Elias! Daddy's always sleeping!" My heart ached. I pulled Jetson into the backyard and spoke firmly. "You need to snap out of it. Zoe needs you. If you can't do it, let me take her to Bowling Green for a while." He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I don't want to be away from her, but I'm dying inside." I hugged my brother, promising to help, though deep down I feared the worst. And my fears came true. One early morning, my parents called, my mother's voice shaking. "Son, Jetson's gone. He left Zoe at our doorstep with a letter." I was stunned. I raced to Nashville. Jetson's letter was scrawled and uneven. "Dad, Mom, Elias, I can't care for Zoe right now. I need time to heal. Please take care of her. I promise I'll come back when I'm better. Love, Jetson." Zoe, then 4, stood trembling beside our parents, clutching an old teddy bear. She looked up at me, her eyes glistening. "Where's Daddy, Uncle?" I didn't know how to answer. I held her close and whispered, "He'll come back soon." The weight in my chest felt unbearable. My little brother, the bright, kind boy I'd once admired, had abandoned his daughter to escape his own pain. I knelt before Zoe, holding back tears. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Uncle's here. Grandpa and Grandma will take care of you, and I'll come visit as often as I can." Zoe nodded, but her eyes searched for an answer I couldn't give. I turned to my parents, standing on the porch. Stone, with his silver hair and sturdy frame, crossed his arms, deep in thought. Robin wiped away tears, muttering, "How could Jetson do this to her?" I didn't blame him. I knew Jetson was drowning in the grief of losing Mia. But leaving Zoe like this, forcing her to face the world without her father, cut me to the bone. I tried to steady my voice. "Mom, Dad, you'll take care of her, right? She needs a stable home." Stone nodded firmly. "Of course, Elias. She's our granddaughter. We'll take care of her." Robin added, her voice resolute. "Don't worry, son. I'll treat Zoe like my own." That day, I stayed at my parents' house, the same house where I'd grown up. The smell of aged wood, the ticking wall clock, the worn sofa where Jetson once sat reading, everything was exactly as I remembered. Zoe sat in a corner, clutching her teddy bear, occasionally glancing at me. I told her stories about her dad's childhood and promised to bring Rocky over soon. She gave a faint smile, but the sadness in her eyes remained. My parents quickly handled the legal side. They contacted the authorities and applied to become Zoe's official guardians. I stayed for several days, shuttling between offices, filling out forms. Finally, approval came. My parents received a monthly foster stipend of about $500. Not much, but enough for Zoe's essentials. Stone held the papers with determination. "This is our family's responsibility, Elias. We'll do right by her." I nodded, relieved. They were my parents, Zoe's grandparents. I trusted they would give her the love and care she needed. At first, life seemed manageable. I returned to Bowling Green, resuming my routine at the garage. In the early days, I called my parents weekly to check on Zoe. Robin would cheerfully say, Zoe's doing well, Elias. I bought her new dresses and baked cookies, Stone would boast. I took her to the park last weekend. She loved it. Hearing this eased the ache in my chest. Zoe was cared for. Loved. That was all I wanted. Hannah reassured me. Don't worry so much, honey. Your parents will do fine. Zoe will be okay. Rocky, excited to meet his cousin, eagerly asked when we could visit Nashville. I promised him we'd arrange it soon. In the first months, I visited Zoe whenever I could, though not as often as I wished. The drive from Bowling Green took over an hour, and my workload at the garage was heavy. Hannah's hospital shifts and Rocky's soccer practice filled the days. Life moved relentlessly, but guilt gnawed at me whenever I thought of Zoe. I told myself I'd visit more, yet weeks stretched into more weeks, and phone calls became my compromise. Zoe's doing great, Elias. She's learning to draw, Robin would say. On the rare occasions I brought Rocky to visit, Zoe's face would light up. The two children played in the yard, chasing each other around the old oak tree. Watching them brought relief. Zoe still had her smile, her childish innocence intact. But beneath the calm, I failed to notice the cracks beginning to form. About a year later, things began to shift. Zoe wasn't as lively as she once was. During one visit, I noticed she had grown thinner, her cheeks hollow, her skin pale. She sat quietly in a corner, clutching her teddy bear, barely speaking. I asked gently, Zoe, what did you eat today? She hesitated. Bread and cheese. I turned to Robin, trying to stay calm. Mom, Zoe looks too thin. Are you feeding her enough? She waved me off with a laugh. Oh, Elias, kids. She's picky, but I'm working on it. Stone added gruffly. Don't worry, we're taking care of her. She's fine. But Zoe's eyes unsettled me. They no longer sparkled, they seemed distant, searching for something far away. I tried to convince myself my parents loved her and were doing their best, but an uneasy feeling kept gnawing at me. I began noticing small details. My parents' house had new items. A large screen TV, a few handbags for Mom, and Dad bragged about dinners out with friends. I wondered where the $500 monthly stipend was going. Was it really being used to care for Zoe? Once I suggested, Mom, Dad, let Zoe come to Bowling Green for a week to play with Rocky. He'd love it, and so would Hannah. Mom refused immediately. No, Zoe's not feeling well. She's used to us, Dad added. You and Hannah are so busy. How could you manage? We'll take care of her, I argued. She needs a change. Staying with us for a while would do her good. Robin brushed it off. She's attached to me, Elias. Don't worry. I was frustrated, but I didn't push further. They were my parents, after all. I told myself to trust them. But the guilt never left. Every night, lying beside Hannah, I would whisper, Do you think Zoe's okay? Hannah, always the optimist, would squeeze my hand. Honey, your parents are adults. They know how to care for a child. Zoe will be fine. I wanted to believe her, but a gnawing unease persisted. I called more often, but my parents always assured me everything was fine. Zoe just ate a big meal, Robin said. She's playing outside, Stone added. I wanted to believe them, yet my heart felt heavy. Meanwhile, Jetson remained missing. I hired a private investigator, spending thousands, but there were no leads. He had vanished completely. I lay awake at night, wondering where my brother was, what he was doing, if he was even safe. Sometimes Zoe would ask softly, Uncle Elias, why is Daddy taking so long to come back? I would hug her and lie. He's just gone away for a little while. He'll be back soon. But I didn't know when, or if, he would return. Time passed. Zoe grew under my parents' care, turning 5, then 6. But each visit, she seemed thinner, quieter. Once, sitting in a corner with her teddy bear, she whispered, Uncle, I want to live with you. I ruffled her hair and smiled. I'll take you home soon, Zoe. Just wait for me. When I brought it up with my parents, they refused. She's too weak, Elias. Let us take care of her. They insisted. Suspicion began to gnaw at me. My parents, always practical and image-conscious, seemed more concerned with appearances than Zoe's well-being. I couldn't be certain they truly loved her anymore. My visits became less frequent, not for lack of wanting to see her, but because life in Bowling Green was demanding. The garage was hectic, Hannah worked night shifts, and Rocky had school and soccer. I tried to console myself. As long as my parents are taking care of Zoe, she's safe. But the unease only grew. I didn't realize then that the cracks in our family were deepening. My parents, whom I had trusted, were growing indifferent to Zoe. The stipend meant for her care was being misused, and she, my little niece, was quietly suffering in the very home that was supposed to be her sanctuary. I never imagined that, a year later, a single phone call in the middle of a stormy night would shatter everything I trusted, plunging me into a nightmare I'd never forget. That night, rain lashed down in torrents. Bowling Green was consumed by thunder and wind, the storm battering the roof as if intent on tearing everything apart. I had just finished a long day at the garage, my back aching, hands smelling of motor oil. Hannah had gone to bed early after her night shift at the hospital, and Rocky was curled under his blanket, lost in the dreams of an 8-year-old. I sat in the living room, flipping through an old magazine, trying to shake off the unease that had been gnawing at me for weeks. It had been 2 years since Jetson disappeared, and Zoe, now 6, was still living with my parents in Nashville. I had called a few days ago. Robin assured me. Zoe's doing fine, Elias. She just ate a big meal. But her voice had been rushed, almost urgent, as if she wanted to end the call quickly. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking. Then the phone rang. The sharp ring cut through the night. I startled, glancing at the clock, nearly midnight. Who would call at this hour? The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was Nashville. My heart raced as I answered. Hello? I whispered, careful not to wake Hannah. A trembling, tiny voice came through, fragile and terrified. Uncle Elias. I'm locked up. I'm so hungry. I'm scared. It was Zoe. Her voice quivered, holding back sobs. I froze, gripping the phone. Zoe, where are you? Who's with you? How did this happen? Only static answered. Then the line went dead. I called back. The phone rang, then rang again. No one answered. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave, drowning all reason. I bolted into the bedroom and shook Hannah awake. Hannah! Zoe called. She said she's locked up. She's scared. I'm going to Nashville now. Hannah sat up, groggy, eyes heavy with sleep. What? What's wrong with Zoe? Calm down. Call your parents first, she said. My hands trembled so violently I almost dropped the phone as I dialed my parents' number. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried again, Robin's mobile this time. Still nothing. My chest tightened, as if my heart were being crushed. Zoe was in danger. I could feel it as sharply as the biting cold rain outside. Hannah, I'm going, I shouted. Stay here with Rocky. I'll call you. I grabbed my jacket and car keys, not waiting for her reply. The rain lashed against the windshield like jagged knives. The wipers fought furiously, barely keeping my view clear. The highway from Bowling Green to Nashville, a little over an hour, felt endless. I floored the accelerator, tires screeching on the slick asphalt. Thunder boomed overhead, but it couldn't drown out the pounding of my heart. Locked up, hungry, scared. Those words drilled into my chest. Where were my parents? How could they let Zoe call me in the middle of the night, terrified? I thought of her frail body, her hollow eyes during my last visits. I had ignored the warning signs, trusted my parents were caring for her. Now I wanted to hit myself for being so blind. The highway stretched on, pitch black, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. I tried calling Zoe again, then my parents' home and mobile numbers, still nothing. I told myself, maybe they're asleep. Maybe she's just frightened by the storm. But deep down, I knew something was very wrong. Zoe didn't exaggerate. If she said she was locked up, it was true. I pressed the gas harder, ignoring the rain that threatened to engulf the car. The image of her tiny form, clutching her worn teddy bear, flashed in my mind, making my eyes sting. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached my parents' neighborhood in Nashville. Their old wooden house loomed in the headlights, shrouded in rain. The house was pitch dark, not a single light shining through the windows. I parked at the gate and jumped out, instantly soaked. I pounded on the front door, shouting, "Dad! Mom! Open the door! Where's Zoe?" No answer. I banged harder, my hands stinging, but only the rain replied. I ran to the back door, hoping it might be unlocked. It wasn't. Bolted shut. Panic and anger surged together. Where was Zoe? If my parents weren't home, how had she called me? And if they were, why didn't anyone answer? I didn't think twice. I grabbed a large rock from the yard and smashed the side door's glass. The crash of shattering glass drowned out the thunder. I cleared the shards carefully and climbed inside. The familiar smell of old wood and musty air hit me, but brought no comfort. "Zoe!" I shouted, flipping the light switch. Nothing. No power. The house was swallowed in darkness, my phone flashlight casting eerie beams across the walls. I searched the first floor, the living room, kitchen, dining room. Empty. My mind raced. Where was Zoe? Where were my parents? I dashed up the stairs 2 at a time, calling her name. In the hallway, I heard a faint whimper. My heart leapt. "Zoe, where are you?" The sound came again, from the small room at the end of the hall, the one my parents used as a storage closet. I ran to it and tried the doorknob. It was locked. "Zoe!" I banged on the door, my voice raw. A weak, trembling voice answered. "Uncle Elias. I'm in here." I didn't hesitate. Kicking the door with everything I had, I forced it open. In the dim light of my phone, I saw her. Curled in the corner on the cold floor, wrapped in a thin blanket, pale and hollow-eyed, clutching her teddy bear like it was her only lifeline. "You finally came to get me," she whispered, so faint I had to kneel to hear her. I scooped her up. Her body was frighteningly light, as if she had no strength left. "You're okay now, Zoe," I said. "Uncle's here," I added, but my voice cracked. She trembled in my arms, ice cold. I scanned the room. No bed, no food, just a few crumbs of dry bread scattered on the floor. An old phone lay in the corner, probably borrowed from a friend. That must have been how she called me. Rage surged through me, but I swallowed it. There wasn't time for that. Right now, I had to save her. I carried Zoe down the stairs, wrapping my jacket around her small body to shield her from the relentless rain. "Uncle's taking you to the hospital, okay?" I whispered. She nodded weakly, her head resting against my shoulder. I rushed to the car, eased her into the back seat, and draped a blanket from the trunk over her. The rain soaked through my clothes, but I didn't feel the cold. All I felt was panic, and the burning anger rising in my chest. I floored the accelerator, calling Hannah on the way. "Hannah! I found Zoe. She's not okay. I'm taking her to the hospital." Hannah gasped. "Oh my God! What's wrong with her? Where are your parents?" I gritted my teeth. "I don't know. They're not home." When I arrived, I carried Zoe into the emergency room. Nurses rushed over, laying her on a stretcher and wheeling her inside. I stood outside, drenched, staring through the glass doors at my niece, small, frail, surrounded by doctors. A nurse approached. "Are you a relative?" "I'm her uncle, Elias Turner," I replied. She jotted something down. "We'll check on her right away. Please wait here." I sank into a chair in the waiting room, hands trembling. The image of Zoe curled in that locked room haunted me. Where were my parents? How could they have allowed this? The stipend, the promises, their supposed love, were they all lies? I called my parents again. No answer. I texted Hannah to stay with Rocky and wait for updates. But deep down, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The locked house, the dark room, and Zoe, the little girl I loved like my own, left starving and terrified. I swore to myself that she would never suffer like that again. The hospital was brightly lit, but the waiting room felt icy, sterile, unwelcoming. My soaked jacket clung to me as I clutched my phone, the image of Zoe lying on that stretcher, tiny, pale, hollow-eyed, burned into my mind. I couldn't forget how she had curled up on the floor, holding her old teddy bear as if it were her last anchor to the world. The emergency room doors swung open. A doctor stepped out, glasses perched on his nose, graying hair neatly combed, a name tag reading Dr. Apollo Patel. He regarded me seriously but gently. "Are you Elias Turner, the girl's uncle?" I nodded, rising abruptly. "How is she? Doctor? Is she okay?" Dr. Patel gestured for me to sit and exhaled heavily. "I'll be straightforward. Zoe's condition is serious. She's suffering from chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, and physical exhaustion. There are also signs of psychological distress, likely from extended neglect. We're giving her fluids and nutrients, but she needs close monitoring." His words hit me like a hammer. Chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, psychological distress. How could this happen? I stammered. "She lives with her grandparents. They receive a stipend to care for her. How could she be starving?" Dr. Patel's eyes were sympathetic. "I don't know your family's circumstances, but this didn't happen overnight. Zoe has been malnourished for a long time, months, possibly a year. She's severely underweight, deficient in vitamins, and her mental state is unstable. Do you know anything about her situation before you brought her here?" I sank back into the chair, memories flashing like a fast-forwarding film, Zoe's hollow cheeks, her lost eyes, the time she whispered, "I want to live with you, Uncle." And I had just smiled, patting her head, telling myself she missed me. I remembered Robin dismissing her hunger and Stone insisting she was fine. I had seen the signs but chosen to trust them. Now, the doctor's words tore through that fragile illusion. I had failed her. I had let her suffer in silence. "Doctor," my voice choked. "Will she be okay?" She's everything to me." Dr. Patel placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We'll do our best. She's young. Her body can recover, but she needs proper care, both physically and mentally. You should contact Child Protective Services. This is a clear case of serious neglect." I nodded numbly. Neglect. The word cut through me like a blade. I looked back through the glass doors. Zoe lay there, eyes closed, and 4 lying in her arm, so small, so fragile. My chest ached, but I clenched my fists. I had her now. I wouldn't let anything like this happen again. She looked so small, so fragile, like a bird with broken wings. I couldn't stop wondering what Zoe had endured in that house. Months of neglect, locked in a dark room, hungry and terrified, while my parents, Stone and Robin, the people I trusted most, ignored her suffering. Where had the stipend meant for her gone? I remembered Robin's new handbags, the big screen TV in the living room, Stone bragging about dinners out with friends. That $500 a month, supposed to cover food, clothes, and school supplies for Zoe, had been spent on themselves. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. Rage surged, but I forced it down. Zoe needed me calm. I pulled out my phone and texted Hannah. "Zoe's malnourished. It's bad. I'm at the hospital. She'll be okay." Hannah's reply came instantly. "Oh my God, Elias, how did it come to this? I'll come see her tomorrow." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. It was Robin's number. My chest tightened, but I answered, voice icy. "Mom, why are you calling so late?" Her voice was rushed, hesitant. "Elias, where are you? Have you seen Zoe?" "Your dad and I went to a friend's party, and when we got back, she was gone. The side windows, broken too." "A party? They had left Zoe alone in a locked house to go to a party. I froze, disbelief and rage boiling inside me. I wanted to scream, to drive back and confront them, demand the truth. But I forced myself to stay calm. What do you mean Zoe's missing? You left her home alone? I emphasized each word, trying to steady my voice. Robin stumbled. Well, we thought she was asleep, and we were only gone for a little while. When we got back, she wasn't there. Have you seen her? We saw your missed calls. Did you take her? I heard Stone's gruff voice in the background. Tell Elias not to make a big deal out of this. My jaw clenched. Their concern wasn't for Zoe. They weren't worried she was missing or that she was weak and malnourished. They were only thinking about saving face. Mom, I said, my voice trembling with anger. How could you leave Zoe alone? She's 6 years old. You knew she was frail. Why weren't you home taking care of her? Robin's voice rose defensively. Elias, you're talking like we abuse her or something. We just stepped out for a bit. Zoe's well behaved. You know she can sleep on her own. Stone cut in sharply. You dare blame us? You're too busy to care for her, so don't lecture us. I was speechless. No apology. No concern. Only pride and excuses. I wanted to scream that Zoe was fighting for her life because of their neglect, but I held back. My first priority had to be her safety. Fine, I said, my voice cold as ice. I'll look for Zoe. You two should too. If you find her, call me immediately. I hung up before they could respond. Standing in the hospital hallway, I felt the ground collapse beneath me. My parents, the people who raised me, whom I trusted, had betrayed Zoe. They hadn't just neglected her, they had taken her stipend for themselves while she starved in a locked room. I looked back at Zoe through the glass. A nurse was checking her monitor, eyes filled with pity. I whispered to myself, Zoe, I won't let you suffer anymore. But I knew keeping that promise meant facing the horrifying truth about my family. They weren't just indifferent, they had abandoned her. I had to act, for Zoe, and for my conscience. I called Hannah, voice shaking. Hannah, they left Zoe alone to go to a party. I'm calling the police. She can't stay with them anymore. Hannah sobbed over the phone. Elias, how could they do that? Whatever you do, bring Zoe to us, okay? I will, I said firmly. I promise. I hung up and looked at Zoe again. She lay there, frail but alive. That was my only hope. I knew the road ahead would be rough. My parents wouldn't let go easily, they'd blame me, fight to save face. But I was resolute, Zoe would never return to that house. Never. Sitting in the hospital hallway, I felt like I was standing in the middle of an endless storm. The steady hum of machines in the emergency room reminded me that Zoe was still fighting. But the real battle was just beginning. I took a deep breath and called the Nashville Police. Nashville Police Department. How can I assist you? An officer answered. I steadied my voice, heart pounding. I want to report an incident. My niece, Zoe Turner, 6 years old, was left alone at her grandparents' house. I went to check. The house was locked. No one was there, and Zoe was missing. I paused, choosing my words carefully when speaking to the police. I didn't mention that I had already found Zoe or that she was in the hospital. I needed time, to gather evidence, to protect her before my parents discovered she was safe. The officer asked for details, the address, a description of Zoe, information about her grandparents. I answered briefly, my voice stiff, masking the rage simmering inside me. We'll send someone to check immediately, he said. Can you come to the station to provide more information? I agreed, but my mind was already forming a different plan. I couldn't wait. I needed the full truth, what had really happened to Zoe over the past 2 years. The $500 monthly stipend, the promises my parents made to care for her, it had all been a lie. I had to find evidence to make sure she would never return to that house. I looked back at Zoe through the glass doors of the emergency room. She lay there, Fraulein in her arm, small face pale but calmer. A nurse approached. "She's more stable now, Mr. Turner," she said. "But she'll need to stay for a few days for monitoring." I thanked her, but my heart weighed heavy. I had to act before my parents realized Zoe was here. I thought about what I needed to do next: check their bank accounts, see how the stipend had been spent. I drove back to my parents' house. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained dark and overcast. The house was pitch black, no lights on. My parents were probably still out searching for Zoe. I entered through the broken window I'd smashed earlier. The familiar smell of old wood and mildew hit me, but now it sent chills down my spine. I turned on my phone flashlight and went straight to Stone's desk in the living room. He always kept important documents in the old drawer. I rummaged through it and found a stack of bank statements. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages. The account showed the $500 monthly stipend as expected, but the transactions that followed made my blood boil: cash withdrawals, shopping sprees, restaurant bills, even a short trip to Memphis. Not a single purchase for food, clothes, or school supplies for Zoe. I snapped photos of every receipt, hands trembling with rage. The money meant to care for Zoe had been squandered on my parents' luxuries. Next, I searched Robin's wardrobe. New handbags, expensive shoes, a fur coat she had once bragged about buying on sale at a high-end store. I thought of Zoe's frail body and hollow eyes and felt like someone was strangling me. They had let her starve while living in comfort. I photographed everything, carefully noting each detail. This would be evidence, but I needed more. I decided to talk to the neighbors. The house next door belonged to Cheryl, an elderly woman who often sat on her porch knitting. I knocked, even though it was nearly 2 a.m. Cheryl opened the door, surprise and concern on her face. "Elias, what's going on? I saw you break into your parents' house earlier." I took a deep breath and briefly explained, omitting that Zoe was in the hospital. "Cheryl, have you noticed anything unusual at their house? About my niece, Zoe?" Cheryl sighed, eyes heavy. "Elias, I don't want to speak ill of your parents, but I've heard Zoe crying a lot, especially at night. Once I heard Robin scold her, telling her to be quiet, not to bother them. Stone would yell, saying she was naughty and wouldn't eat. I asked about her once, but Robin said she was just whiny, normal kid stuff. She looked so thin. I brought over some cookies, but Robin wouldn't let her take them." I clenched my fists, struggling to contain my fury. "Did you ever see them leave Zoe alone?" Cheryl nodded. "Many times. They'd go out at night, leaving her home alone. I was worried, but I didn't dare interfere." Her words were another stab. I thanked her, promising to return, and went back to my car, mind racing. Zoe wasn't just neglected, she had been scolded, left alone in the very house that was supposed to be her sanctuary. I needed more evidence, especially from school. The next morning, I called Maplewood Elementary, near my parents' house, and spoke with Zoe's teacher, Rebecca Allen. "I'm Elias Turner, Zoe's uncle," I said. "I'd like information about her school performance." Rebecca hesitated. "Mr. Turner, Zoe is enrolled, but she's barely attended class. Over 90% of the school term, she's been absent." My heart sank. "How is that possible? Didn't her grandparents say anything?" "We sent multiple warnings," Rebecca said, "but got no response. I called once. Robin said Zoe was often sick, but she never provided medical records. We were very concerned but couldn't intervene further." I asked Rebecca to send Zoe's school records. That afternoon, an email arrived. The documents confirmed her words. Zoe had only attended a few days at the start of the year. After that, almost entirely absent. Teacher notes described her as withdrawn, quiet, and perpetually tired. Tears stung my eyes. Zoe hadn't just been neglected at home, she had been deprived of education, social interaction, and the chance to live like a normal child. I returned to the hospital, carrying the evidence I had gathered: bank statements, photos of Robin's luxury items, Cheryl's testimony, and the school records. Zoe was in the recovery room, more alert now. I sat by her bedside, holding her small hand. Zoe, Uncle's here. You won't have to go back there, I whispered. Her eyes, still fearful, met mine. Uncle, I don't want to stay with Grandma and Grandpa anymore, she said, her voice faint as a breeze. I hugged her, vowing silently that I would do everything in my power to bring her to my family. I knew the next step. I needed a lawyer. I had to file for custody. My parents wouldn't give up easily. They would fight, not for Zoe's well-being, but for their pride and the stipend. But I was ready. For Zoe, I wouldn't back down. I started searching for a lawyer. Hannah recommended Jennifer Lawson, a respected family law attorney in Bowling Green. I scheduled a meeting for the next morning, bringing every piece of evidence I'd collected: my parents' bank statements, photos of Robin's luxury items, Cheryl's handwritten testimony, and Zoe's school records from Maplewood Elementary. As I set the thick stack of documents on her desk, Jennifer, a blonde woman with sharp eyes, flipped through each page, her brows knitting tightly. Elias, she said quietly, this is serious. This evidence clearly demonstrates neglect. The bank statements, in particular, are damning. The stipend was never used for Zoe's care. I nodded, suppressing the rage boiling inside me. Jennifer, I just want Zoe to be safe. She can't go back to her grandparents. Jennifer's gaze softened. I understand. We'll file a custody lawsuit. You're a direct relative with a stable job and family. Your chances are strong. She got to work immediately. The lawsuit detailed everything: Zoe's malnutrition, her educational neglect, Cheryl's testimony, and the misuse of the stipend. I recounted the story of the past 2 years over and over. Each retelling felt like a vice tightening around my chest. I had let Zoe suffer far too long, all because I trusted my parents. Now, I had to make it right. A week later, the lawsuit was filed in Nashville Family Court. I received notice that my parents would be served within days. I knew the moment they saw it, the storm would erupt. Sure enough, that evening my phone rang. Robin's voice, icy and sharp, cut through the line. Elias, what nonsense is this? You're hiding Zoe, and now you're suing your own parents. Who do you think you are, accusing us of neglect? I took a deep breath, keeping my tone calm. Mom, I'm not accusing you without reason. I have proof. Zoe was malnourished, locked in a room, abandoned. How do you explain that? Her voice hardened. You're making this up for the stipend, aren't you? You want to steal her for money? Her words cut, but I was ready. I knew my parents' obsession with appearances and their fixation on pride and money. Stone grabbed the phone, his voice booming. Elias, if you don't drop this lawsuit, we'll disown you. I gripped the phone tightly, heart racing, voice steady and cold. Dad, I won't drop it. I'm doing this for Zoe, not for money. If you truly loved her, why did you let her starve? Why let her tremble in fear in a locked room? They hung up, leaving only the cold beep of the dial tone. The fragile remains of my family had shattered completely. I sank onto the sofa, mind reeling. Hannah wrapped her arms around me from behind, whispering, You're doing the right thing, Elias. Zoe needs you. Her words were the only lifeline I had in that storm. The following days blurred together. My parents called repeatedly, sometimes threatening, sometimes feigning concern. Elias, you misunderstood, Robin said one day, softer than before. We only went to that party once. Zoe was fine. I didn't respond. I hung up. I couldn't trust them anymore. Every time I heard their voices, I remembered Zoe curled up in that dark room, trembling as she whispered over the phone. Uncle, I'm so scared. I told myself, over and over, that no matter what they said, I wouldn't waver. Zoe deserved a real home, and I would fight to give her that. A few days later, Jennifer called with an update. The court has set a hearing 3 weeks from now, she said. Your parents have hired their own lawyer. They're trying to dismiss the neglect claims, saying Zoe was just sick and you're exaggerating to gain custody. I shook my head, unsurprised. Jennifer. I have evidence. The doctor, the neighbor, the school, they all confirmed the truth. Jennifer nodded. Exactly. We have a strong case. But brace yourself, the hearing won't be easy. They're your parents, and family dynamics make this more complicated. I knew she was right. But every time I thought of Zoe, I knew there was no other choice. I visited Zoe in the hospital daily. She began eating small amounts of porridge but remained quiet. I told her about Rocky, how he worried about her, about our house in Bowling Green, and about Hannah's garden. You'll love it there, I said, ruffling her hair. Her eyes flickered with a faint spark of hope. Zoe gave a faint smile, the first real spark I'd seen in her eyes. That small gesture became my fuel, my reason to keep fighting. The day of the hearing arrived. The atmosphere in the Nashville courtroom was tense, heavy, like the sky before a storm. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Jennifer, gripping the stack of evidence tightly. Across from us, my parents sat rigid, their eyes cold and unyielding. Stone wore an old suit, trying to maintain a veneer of dignity, while Robin dabbed at her eyes, performing the part of the grieving grandmother. Their lawyer, a middle-aged man with a smooth voice, looked at me as though I were a traitor. Zoe wasn't present. Jennifer said it was better for her mental state, but I felt her absence in every heartbeat. Judge Franklin Moore, a tall man with a stern face, struck his gavel. Let's begin, he declared. Jennifer rose, her voice steady, and laid out the case: Zoe's malnutrition, educational neglect, the misuse of the stipend, and the neighbor's testimony. The first witness, Dr. Apollo Patel, took the stand. His voice was calm and precise. Zoe Turner suffered from chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, and shows signs of psychological distress from extended neglect. This condition did not develop overnight. It's been ongoing for months, possibly a year. My parents' lawyer tried to counter. Doctor, could it be that the child was simply sick or a picky eater? Dr. Patel shook his head firmly. No. This is clear evidence of severe neglect. A 6-year-old cannot create this condition herself. I searched my parents' faces for remorse. Robin lowered her head. Stone scowled, anger etched across his features. Next, Cheryl, the neighbor, took the stand. Her voice trembled. I heard Zoe crying many nights, especially when it was quiet. Mr. and Mrs. Turner often left her alone until late. Once I brought food over, but Robin wouldn't let her take it. Their lawyer attempted to dismiss her words. You only heard crying. Kids cry. They can be whiny, right? Cheryl's eyes hardened. No. Zoe was terrified. I was genuinely worried for her. Then came Rebecca Allen, Zoe's teacher, presenting school records showing Zoe had been absent over 90% of the school term. We sent multiple warnings, but there was no response from Mr. and Mrs. Turner, she said. Zoe had barely attended school. Judge Moore's expression deepened as Jennifer presented receipts highlighting my parents' extravagant spending: handbags, dinners, even a short trip to Memphis. The $500 monthly stipend was intended for Zoe's care, she argued. Yet there's no evidence it was ever used for that purpose. Their lawyer countered, accusing me of exaggerating to seize the stipend. Jennifer's reply was sharp. Mr. Turner has a stable job and family. He doesn't need the stipend. He wants only one thing: Zoe's safety. It was my turn. I stood, hands trembling but voice steady. Your Honor, I am not pursuing this for money. I'm doing this for Zoe. She was locked in a room, starved, denied an education. I am her uncle, and I want her to live in a safe, loving environment. I looked at my parents, hoping for shame. Stone glared. Robin turned away. When they took the stand, Robin sobbed, insisting they loved Zoe and that she was merely sick. Stone accused me of fabricating stories to destroy the family. But the evidence was overwhelming. Judge Moore called a brief recess. When he returned, his verdict was clear. Based on the evidence and testimonies, custody of Zoe Turner is granted to Elias Turner. Mr. and Mrs. Stone and Robin Turner will be monitored by Child Protective Services, and the foster care stipend is terminated. The courtroom fell silent. Robin cried, but I knew it wasn't for Zoe, it was for pride. Stone pointed at me. You'll regret this, Elias. You're no longer my son. I said nothing. My heart ached, but I had no regrets. I had chosen Zoe, and that was the right choice. After the hearing, Jennifer patted my shoulder. You did well, Elias. Zoe will be safe with you. I nodded, though my heart remained heavy. My family was broken, but I had done what was necessary. I drove back to the hospital where Zoe waited. Sitting by her bedside, I held her small hand and whispered, Zoe, you're coming home with Uncle. Everything will be okay. She gave a faint smile, hugging me tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her fragile little hands clinging to me, full of trust despite her weakness, warmed my heart. From that moment, I realized something profound. I was no longer just Zoe's uncle. I was her protector, her guardian, her second father. A few days later, Zoe was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Apollo Patel gave me detailed instructions. She needs a special diet and regular psychological monitoring, he said. Her mental state is still fragile, but with love and care, she'll recover. I nodded, committing every word to memory. As I carried Zoe to the car, she clutched her old teddy bear, glancing out the window with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Am I going to meet Aunt Hannah and Rocky soon? She asked in a tiny voice. I ruffled her hair. That's right. They're waiting for you at home. The drive from Nashville to Bowling Green was unexpectedly peaceful. I turned on the radio, selecting a cheerful children's song, hoping it would help Zoe relax. She gave a faint smile, and I knew I was doing the right thing. When we arrived home, Hannah and Rocky were waiting at the door. Hannah ran out and hugged Zoe tightly. Welcome home, Zoe. Rocky, grinning widely, held up a small ball. Zoe, I'll teach you how to play soccer. Zoe was shy at first, but her eyes brightened at the warm welcome. I looked at Hannah, feeling the depth of her unconditional love for Zoe. Thank you, I whispered. Hannah squeezed my hand. We're a family, honey. Zoe is our daughter now. The first few nights were still difficult. Zoe often woke from nightmares, crying for me or Hannah. One evening I rushed to her room and found her curled in the corner of the bed, clutching her teddy bear. I'm scared, she whispered. They'll lock me up again. I held her close, soothing her. No one will lock you up anymore, Zoe. Uncle's here. Aunt Hannah's here. Rocky's here. You're safe now. Gradually, Zoe began to trust us. The nightmares became less frequent, but I knew the scars in her heart would take time to heal. We arranged for her to see a psychologist, Dr. Allison Pierce, a gentle yet professional woman. During therapy sessions, Zoe slowly began to open up, recounting the days she had been left hungry, locked in a room, and scolded for crying. Each story felt like a knife to my heart. Uncle Elias, I just wanted to make Grandma and Grandpa happy, but I always did something wrong, Zoe said, tears welling in her eyes. Dr. Pierce reassured her. Zoe, you didn't do anything wrong. You deserve to be loved. I sat outside the room, listening through the door. My heart ached, but I also felt hope. Zoe was slowly regaining her confidence. At home, we focused on giving her a normal life. Hannah cooked nutritious meals, from chicken soup to homemade cookies, to help her gain weight. Rocky became her best friend, always protective of her. One day, I saw him holding Zoe's hand, leading her into the backyard for soccer practice. Don't be afraid. I won't let you fall, he said. Zoe laughed, a clear, carefree sound that I hadn't heard in years. Those moments, Hannah singing lullabies, Rocky playing soccer, our family gathered around the dinner table, became healing for both Zoe and me. I enrolled Zoe in Bowling Green Elementary alongside Rocky. On her first day, she gripped my hand tightly. Uncle, what if the teacher scolds me? She asked, anxious. I knelt to meet her gaze. The teacher will love you, Zoe. And Rocky will be there too. Rocky puffed out his chest. That's right. I'll protect you. Zoe smiled, and I knew she was starting to settle in. Her teacher gave her extra attention, reporting that she was doing well, though still shy. Rocky stayed close, ensuring no one bullied her. Months passed. Zoe began to flourish. She gained weight, her cheeks grew rosy, and her smile became more frequent. Hannah and I transformed the living room into a play area, filled with toys and books. Every evening, we read bedtime stories of courage and family love. One night, Zoe hugged me before bed. "Uncle Elias, you're the best dad in the world," she whispered. My heart melted. She had found her home, and I knew that despite her painful past, a bright future awaited her. For years passed in a blink. Zoe was now 10, lively and spirited, loving painting and soccer with Rocky. She called Hannah and me Mom and Dad, filling us with emotion and pride. Rocky, now 12, remained her devoted protector. Yet there was still an empty space in my heart for Jetson, my younger brother who had vanished 4 years earlier. I didn't know if he was alive or gone, but I prayed he had found peace. One autumn afternoon, while working in the garage, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello, who's this?" I asked cautiously. A familiar voice, deeper and more mature, answered. "Elias, it's me. Jetson." My heart skipped a beat. "Jetson," I whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "Where? Are you okay?" A soft laugh came through, thick with emotion. "I'm okay. I want to see you, and Zoe. I'm in Bowling Green." I raced home. Hannah and Zoe were tending the vegetable garden in the backyard. "Jetson's back," I told them. Hannah hugged me tightly. "Oh my God, Elias, he's really back." Zoe looked up, eyes wide with curiosity. "Dad? Jetson, is he really back?" I nodded, holding back tears. "Yes, Zoe. Your dad's back." An hour later, Jetson appeared at our doorstep. He had changed. Thinner, with streaks of gray in his hair, but his eyes were bright and alive. Dressed in a sharp suit, he was no longer the man lost in alcohol and pills 6 years ago. When Zoe ran to him, Jetson knelt down and wrapped her in a tight embrace, tears streaming down his face. "Zoe, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for leaving you," he said, his voice breaking. Zoe clung to him, sobbing. "Dad, I miss you so much." I stood back, watching their reunion, my heart torn between joy and lingering pain. Jetson turned to me, gripping my hand. "Elias, thank you. Thank you for saving Zoe, for giving her a home." I shook my head. "Jetson, I just did what was right. You're my brother, and Zoe's your daughter." He told me about the past 6 years, therapy, rehab, moving to California to start over. Now he was a successful entrepreneur running a small tech company. Jetson stayed with us for a week to reconnect with Zoe. He played with her, took her to the park, and shared the story of the years he'd fought to overcome his pain. Zoe warmed up to him slowly, though she still called me Dad Elias. Jetson didn't mind, he only smiled. "You deserve to be Zoe's dad," he said once, and then made a surprising declaration. "I'm cutting ties with Mom and Dad. After what they did to Zoe, I can't forgive them." I nodded in understanding. I, too, could not forgive what our parents had done to their own granddaughter. The years of neglect, hunger, and fear had left scars, not only on Zoe but on Jetson and me as well. Yet now, seeing Zoe smiling beside her father, I knew we had emerged from the darkness. Our family, once broken, was rebuilding, with Zoe at the heart of our love and hope. One morning, Jetson called me to the backyard. "Elias," he said, voice firm but calm, "I've decided to take Zoe to New York. My company there is doing well, and I want her to have a fresh start, a new home." I looked at him, seeing the resolve and maturity in his eyes. Jetson was no longer the lost brother of years past. He had found himself, and now he wanted to give Zoe the best life possible. "You're right, Jetson. Zoe deserves that." I said, though my chest felt heavy. But you have to promise to take care of her. I promise, he said, gripping my hand. And I'll bring her back to visit you often. We're family. Zoe ran out and hugged us both. I'll call Dad Elias and Mom Hannah every day, she said, her voice bright and full of joy. On the day Jetson and Zoe left, our whole family saw them off at the airport. Zoe hugged Hannah tightly, then jumped to hug Rocky. Rocky, I'll miss you so much. Rocky, trying to act tough, blinked back tears. Study hard, Zoe. I'll come visit you in New York. As Jetson and Zoe passed through security, Zoe turned back and waved, her smile radiant as sunshine. I stood there, proud but wistful. Zoe had found safety and love, but I knew I would miss her every day. A few days later, while cleaning my desk, I found an envelope tucked under a stack of bills. Inside was a check for $1 million, signed by Jetson. A small note accompanied it, written in his familiar, neat handwriting. Elias, this isn't to repay a debt. I know nothing can repay what you've done for Zoe. This is for you and Hannah, to give you a better life, and to thank you for being an amazing brother to me and a second father to Zoe. I held the check and smiled. Jetson had truly rebuilt his life, overcoming his pain to become a successful, mature man. I didn't plan to use the money immediately. I wanted to save it, perhaps for Rocky and Zoe's future. But the check, beyond its material value, was proof of my brother's return. Meanwhile, I heard about my parents through a mutual acquaintance in Nashville. Stone and Robin now lived in isolation, rarely leaving their old house. After the trial, the local community learned the truth of their neglect. Friends who once partied with them kept their distance, whispering about their selfishness. Cheryl, our neighbor, told me Robin had tried to apologize, her voice full of false remorse. They live in loneliness, Cheryl said. They know they were wrong, but their pride won't let them admit it. I didn't feel joy hearing this. Despite everything, they were still my parents. Part of me ached, thinking of them, old, abandoned by their own arrogance. But I didn't reach out. I had chosen Zoe, and I had no regrets. Sitting in our backyard, looking at the garden Hannah and Zoe tended together, I reflected on everything that had happened. The fight for Zoe wasn't just against my parents, it was against myself, against the naive belief that family would always put love first. I had learned that true love requires sacrifice, courage, and sometimes the strength to cut ties with toxic relationships. Zoe taught me that through her resilient smile and her journey from darkness into light. If I had advice for anyone, it would be this: listen to your instincts. When I saw Zoe's gaunt frame and lost eyes, I chose to trust my parents' lies, and it almost cost her future. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect the ones you love, even if it means confronting your own family. And most importantly, never give up hope. Zoe survived. Jetson returned. And I discovered the true meaning of family, not in blood, but in love, responsibility, and care.